My name is Emma. I am 32 years old. I live in a small, narrow house on a quiet street where nothing ever seems to change. The paint on the walls is old, the floor creaks when you walk, and the silence sits heavy in every room. I live here with my husband, Daniel. We have been married for 12 years. People say that is a long time. Sometimes it feels long. Sometimes it feels like time stopped somewhere in the middle. I don't work outside the house. I am home every day. I clean, I cook, I fold clothes that never seem to end. I wait. Waiting has become part of my routine, like breathing. We don't have children. I wanted them for years. I imagined small footsteps running through the house, toys on the floor, noise, life. Daniel always said the same thing. Not now. Maybe later. At first, I believed him. Later felt close back then. As time passed, later began to sound like never. Eventually, I stopped asking. Some questions hurt more when they remain unanswered. Daniel used to talk more. We used to sit at the table and share our days. Somewhere along the way, those conversations disappeared. His work trips became longer. His words became shorter. When he came home, his body arrived before his mind. He looked tired, distracted, distant. I would ask, "How was the trip?" He would say, "Fine." Then he would look at his phone, and the moment would die quietly between us. When Daniel was gone, the house felt too big. Every sound echoed. Every night felt longer than the last. I didn't have friends in this town. No family nearby. Just empty hours and quiet mornings. The only person I spoke to regularly was the bread delivery man. His name was Ethan. He came early every morning, just as the sky began to lighten. He placed the basket by the door and moved on to the next house. Some mornings, I opened the door before he left. He always smiled when he saw me, like he wasn't surprised at all. "Good morning, Emma," he said every time. His voice was calm, steady. At first, our conversations were simple. The weather. The quiet street. Nothing important. Just a few words before he continued his route. But slowly, without either of us planning it, those moments grew longer. Ethan asked questions Daniel never asked anymore. "How are you really?" he once said. Then he waited. Some mornings, we sat on the front steps for a few minutes. The street was empty. The air was cool. I found myself talking more than I meant to. I told him I felt lonely. I told him I felt invisible in my own home. He didn't interrupt. He didn't give advice. He just listened. "No one should feel invisible," he said quietly. When Daniel was away, I sometimes invited Ethan inside for tea. We sat at the kitchen table, sunlight falling between us. We talked for hours about small things and big things we never said out loud before. Nothing crossed a line, but something existed there. A closeness, a warmth, a reminder of being seen. Daniel never noticed. Or maybe he did, and chose not to care. One afternoon, Daniel came home earlier than expected. He dropped his suitcase near the door. "These need washing," he said, already turning away. His voice held no warmth, only habit. I carried the clothes to the laundry room. I sorted them the way I always did. Then I stopped. One white shirt caught my eye. There was a faint red mark near the collar. Lipstick. Not mine.
My hands trembled as I held the fabric closer. My heart began to race. In the other room, Daniel was laughing on the phone. The sound felt wrong, sharp, unfamiliar. That night, we slept in the same bed, but it felt like miles apart. He turned his back to me. The space between us felt endless. I stared at the ceiling until morning.
2 days later, Daniel left again. Another trip. No details. No explanation. Just gone. The house swallowed the silence once more. Then one evening, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number appeared on the screen. My chest tightened before I even answered. The voice on the other end was calm, careful. There had been an accident on the highway. Daniel was involved. There was another woman in the car. They didn't survive. The world didn't end loudly. It ended quietly. I sat on the floor with the phone still in my hand. The house felt frozen. Everything felt unreal. In the days that followed, my body changed. I felt weak. Sick. Food made me nauseous. Even the smell of bread turned my stomach. Sleep came in pieces. Ethan noticed immediately. He brought soup, fruit, warm meals I barely touched. He didn't force conversation. He just stayed. "You should see a doctor," he said gently one morning. I nodded but didn't move. Fear had wrapped itself around me. Then one morning, my vision blurred while standing in the kitchen. The floor tilted. I barely caught myself. That scared me enough to leave the house. I went to the doctor alone. After the examination, he sat across from me. His voice was soft. Careful. "You're pregnant," he said. The words didn't make sense at first. I asked him to repeat it. He did. I walked home slowly. The streets looked unfamiliar. My legs felt heavy. I sat on the couch, hands resting on my stomach. And I cried. I cried for the years I waited. I cried for the truth I never wanted to see. I cried because life had chosen the worst moment to begin again. The crying came in waves. When it stopped, the house felt different. Not quieter. Heavier. I sat there for a long time, my hands still on my stomach, trying to understand how something so small could change everything so quickly. I had wanted this for years. I had begged for it. And now it had arrived wrapped in grief. I whispered Daniel's name once. It didn't comfort me. It didn't anger me either. It just echoed. That night, I didn't turn on the lights. I moved through the house in the dark, touching familiar things like I might forget them. His shoes by the door. His jacket on the chair. Evidence of a life that had already ended. Sleep didn't come. When it did, it brought dreams I couldn't hold on to. Faces without names. Voices without words. I woke up exhausted, my body aching as if I had run far without moving at all. Morning arrived quietly. The knock at the door startled me. I already knew who it was. Ethan stood there with a basket in his hands. He looked at me for a long second, then his expression changed. "You don't look okay," he said softly. I stepped aside to let him in. The words were sitting in my chest, heavy and sharp. They fell out all at once. About the accident. About Daniel. About the woman. About the doctor. "I'm pregnant," I said, my voice breaking at the end. Ethan didn't speak right away. He put the basket down slowly. Then he sat across from me. "Do you want me to say something?" he asked, Or just listen? I shook my head. I don't know, I said. So he listened. Days turned into weeks. The world moved forward without asking me if I was ready. Paperwork arrived. Condolences came and went. People said things they thought were comforting. Everything happens for a reason. You're strong. At least you have something to remember him by. I learned to nod. My body continued to change. Mornings became harder. Smells lingered too long. My emotions shifted without warning. One moment I felt numb. The next, overwhelmed. Ethan became part of my routine without ever forcing his way in. He walked me to appointments. He waited outside. He brought groceries and left them quietly when I didn't want company. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. One afternoon, I finally asked the question that had been waiting. Why are you doing this? I said. You don't owe me any. He looked at me for a long moment. Because you shouldn't be alone, he said. And because I want to be here. Something inside me tightened. And something else loosened. As my belly began to show, reality became impossible to ignore. This was happening. This life was growing. And I had to decide what kind of future I would give it. One evening, as we sat quietly, Ethan spoke again. I don't want to replace anyone, he said carefully. But if you ever want. I mean, if you ever need. I stopped him gently. I know, I said. But not like that. He nodded. There was no anger in his face. Only understanding. I'll stay, he said. In whatever way you need. That was enough. I began to feel the baby move one night while lying in bed. Just a small flutter. Like a secret. I placed my hand there and laughed through tears. For the first time in years, I didn't feel empty. The house didn't change. The walls were still old. The floors still creaked. But the silence was different now. It wasn't hollow anymore. It was waiting. And for the first time, so was I. The months passed slowly, but they passed. Each day carried its own weight. Each day also carried something new. I began to notice small changes. The way sunlight rested longer in the living room. The way I walked more carefully, more aware of myself. The way my hand often rested on my stomach without thinking. It felt natural, like instinct returning. I talked to the baby when I was alone. Quiet words. Simple promises. I told them about the house, about the street, about the mornings that smelled like bread. I told them I didn't have all the answers, but I would try. Ethan remained steady. He never pushed. Never asked for more. He showed up when I needed help and stepped back when I needed space. Trust grew quietly, the way strong things often do. People in town began to notice my pregnancy. Questions came. Some curious. Some careless. I learned to choose my answers carefully. Not every truth needs to be shared. One afternoon, I found myself cleaning out Daniel's old belongings. It wasn't planned. I just opened a drawer and didn't stop. Shirts. Papers. A watch he never wore. Each item carried memory, but the pain felt softer now. Less sharp. More distant. I realized something important as I worked. I wasn't holding on anymore. I was letting go. That night, I stood in front of the mirror and studied my reflection. I looked different. Not just physically. There was strength in my eyes I didn't recognize at first. Grief had shaped me, But it had not broken me. The day my child was born, the sky was grey and quiet. Rain touched the windows gently, like the world was holding its breath. Labor was long, painful, real. But when I heard that first cry, everything else faded. I held my baby against my chest. Warm, alive, real. In that moment, nothing from the past mattered more than what I held in my arms. Ethan was there, standing back, respectful and calm. When our eyes met, he smiled. Not with hope, not with expectation, just with kindness. Weeks later, life settled into a new rhythm. Sleepless nights, soft mornings, tiny fingers wrapping around mine. The house no longer felt empty. It felt full in a way I never imagined. One morning, as I stood by the window, my child sleeping in my arms, I understood something clearly. Love can fail. Trust can break. People can leave in ways you never expect. But life doesn't stop. It changes direction. I didn't know what the future would bring. I didn't need to. For the first time, I wasn't waiting anymore. I was living.